Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, just about 13 years strong. We'll be celebrating 13 years mid-April, folks. Boy, a month, and we've got a great celebration coming your way. Well, I say that, and I have no idea what we have planned. That being said, what we do have planned this week on Opposition Territory is a fantastic discussion with our good friend from A to Z Sports. You can also search them out, A to Z Sports NFL. They got a lot of great content over there. Our good friend, Evan Winter. My friend, how are you doing?
Jeff, I'm doing great, man. Always a pleasure to be on, and ready to talk some offseason football.
Absolutely. We're going to get into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I probably should have said that right off the bat. Whenever Evan's on, we usually dive into some Bucs talk and some general NFL talk too, but this is all about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I find this team to be fascinating because even though, and we'll get to it, there was a disappointing 2025 season with the Carolina Panthers winning that division, amazingly enough, I still think this is a team that has a little something in the tank. But there's some retooling that's going on with this team, both offensive and defensively. So really, let's get into it. And I think we need to start off with free agency and where the Buccaneers front office, what they've done thus far. Look, you've got running back Kenny Gainwell, who we know very well in Philadelphia. Alex Anzalone. Is it Anzalone or Anzalone?
Anzalone, yeah.
Anzalone, yes. Two very notable signings right off the bat in free agency. So I'm wondering, how are the Bucs looking at free agency this year, specifically the front office from a strategic standpoint? How do you think the front office has handled free agency thus far?
Yeah, when you talk about first starting off, when you talk about how they viewed it coming in, you got a really kind of concrete vibe that they weren't very impressed with this class of free agents, this crop, whatever you want to call it. They didn't really have this. I mean, they had salary cap space to work with, but it's maybe $20 million or so. And the key part about their offseason coming in was they didn't have any big-time cut candidates that could have freed up, not like Devontae Adams with the Jets a couple years ago, release opened up immediately like $35 million in cap room. They didn't even have their best cut option would have saved them, and it was Vita Vea. It didn't make any sense. It would have saved them $17.5 million, but it didn't make any sense. So all this stuff. So they were kind of they're kind of pigeonholed coming into the offseason. And then on top of that, like I said, kind of the feel we got from people covering the team was they just weren't impressed with this class. They just kind of took it slow and steady. And I like the moves they made. I really like the Kenneth Gainwell signing. Obviously, he caught 73 balls last year, but you look at what he did on the ground. Outside of the numbers, what he did on the tape, he averaged 4.7 yards a carry, had over 100 carries. So it's not like he just had 40 carries and popped off a few big runs. It was sustained success, right? And then the tape backs that up as well. So I really like the Kenneth Gainwell signing. I think he's going to add, him and Bucky aren't like similar, but their strengths are similar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I really like the Anzalone signing. Now, granted, he will be 32 in September, so got to kind of wonder there. But, Levante David, I should say, had plenty left in the tank up until the last couple of years. Their approach to free agency, they were really in on Trey Hendrickson. I definitely know that for a fact.
Yeah.
The Ravens did screw that up for them in a pretty big way. But
Ravens screwed up a lot of stuff.
A lot of things. Yeah. So overall, I see, and again, we could talk 20 minutes about all the context and just the cloud hanging over this franchise coming into this offseason, because it's a lot. It's a lot of background, and it all starts with Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
But regardless, I still gave I still gave the Buccaneers so far a B-, just because even though Mike Evans, there was clearly nothing Tampa could do to keep him in-house. He wanted to leave. And that, and then not being able to find, they got screwed on the Trey Hendrickson thing, but he wasn't the top pass rusher on the market, right? Or he wasn't the only top pass rusher on the market, I should say. There are plenty of other fish in the sea they could have gone after and signed. So the fact that they lost out on Mike Evans and the fact that they couldn't land a top edge rusher in an offseason where they literally said at the combine that's one of their biggest priorities, and it had to be one of their biggest priorities, no matter what the circumstances were. I gave them a B- so far for this offseason.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned Todd Bowles, and perhaps we're going to get into him at some point during the course of this conversation.
It's inevitable. It's
Again, I still think this organization isn't in the toilet by any stretch of the imagination. They're not the Cleveland Browns. They're not the New York Jets. But I think what you said was a good segue into how the Bucs are team building for the future. Again, you mentioned they lose Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's health is usually a question season after season. Yes. From a weapons standpoint, there may not be a lot on offense, but there is one gentleman who is leading this offense, and we'll get to him in a little bit, in Baker Mayfield. And with Baker Mayfield under center, it gives me hope in terms of watching this team. Not that I'm necessarily rooting for the Buccaneers being an Eagles fan, but that this organization isn't dead in the water. Yes, there's some holes on defense as well, especially when you look at the pass rush standpoint. How do you think the front office will address future team building, Evan, with the draft and even as this offseason progresses here?
Yeah, they're definitely not dead in the water. Their margin for error, however, is razor thin.
Yeah,
they have to, in order to get where they want to be and where would save Todd Bowles' job. I think if they go out this year, then both Todd Bowles and Light are gone. However, there's some people who believe Light would survive. And sorry, my camera just went out, and I'm not going to be able to.
All good.
I'm not going to be able to get back on unless I restart the computer. So
all good.
All right, but anyways, so how they handle it, I think they're going to go defensive heavy still in the draft. Edge, linebacker, cornerback. I mean, if you look at their cornerback room right now, it is not impressive whatsoever.
They need veteran presence back there, I think, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can't trust Benjamin Morrison right now. Zion McCollum's coming off the worst year of his career. Jacob Parrish looked good, but that was year one. What's going to translate in year two, so on and so forth. But I would see them taking a tight end, maybe day 3, something like that, early, round 4. They really like the kid out of Texas A&M, Nate Borkirker, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. But either way, here, and this is kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, how they had no realistic cut candidates and stuff like that because of the contract structure and whatnot. This is where sure, every team wants to draft and develop, right? But Tampa Bay is really good at drafting and developing. And what that leads to is, now that Tom Brady is no longer in the picture, they don't do big signing bonuses, things like that. They do the pay as you go style, big fat base salaries, little guarantees up front, things like that. And what that happens is it creates just what they're in now, this kind of traffic jam where they don't have these contracts because they're actually good contracts. The players are living up to the contracts.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, we can't do anything, and they're good players. So they're getting paid and they don't have oodles of cap room.
Between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. So, and they're entering a prove it year. So, like I said, they were in on Trey Hendrickson. They're wanting to land impact guys. They know they need to land impact guys, but they're kind of hamstrung. And so the draft, though, I think they're going to really, like I said, press defense heavy.
Yep. And
then if it works out next year, I don't know, because there's still going to be a lot of questions after this year, even if they do succeed. So
it's very true. But and again, a good segue into this next topic, and that is Baker Mayfield, because I do wonder how Baker Mayfield is going to look here in 2026 when he takes the field, especially without Mike Evans, his security blanket. And I know it's been talked about ad nauseum here within Bucs Nation, whether it's on podcasts or whether it's articles written as well. Look, Baker Mayfield, he had a very nice, in my opinion, 2025 season, almost 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And there were a lot of question marks on the offense, and he was still able to, I believe, produce at a certain level where this team needed him to produce in order for them to at least be in playoff contention. It is, of course, March here when we are recording this, mid-March. But what kind of Baker Mayfield do you think we're going to end up seeing this season?
That's a really good question, Jeff. Really good question. He's also entering a contract year. I think we're going to see the good version of Baker. But it's inevitable. We're going to see the bad stretches. And a big problem with him last year was not only trying to play hero ball way too much, but he just wasn't good towards the end. And now, granted, he was hurt. He was dealing with a lot of injuries. I think throughout the year, at one point, he had 5 separate injuries throughout like a 9-week span listed on the injury report. So there's definitely something going on there. Josh Rizard, that's a whole other conversation in terms of, being a first-year OC and so on and so forth. He's facing a really big year, man. And the good thing is there's some familiarity with Zach Robinson's offense and, coming from Liam Cohen and all that stuff from a few years ago.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of, bleed over, crossover, whatever you want to call it. But it's really tough to put a finger on Baker Mayfield and what he's going to look like this year.
Yeah.
Now, if the offensive line stays healthy, then yeah, he's going to be just fine. And a big reason why the Bucs offense struggled outside of the other things I've already mentioned, but their guard play and center play, even with Graham Barton, he took a huge step back last year. It was really bad, and that really affected the offense on top of all the other injuries that they were having. So it's just one of those things, man, where it's time it was going to tell. I hate to chalk it up to that.
Yeah.
But I will say if the offensive line stays healthy, he'll be okay.
That and you know what, I think that's what inevitably needs to happen. I was going to go there, and you just kind of took the words out of my mouth. But I also think this is an opportunity, and it's a theme we've been talking about here on the show with other teams and their team building, and specifically at the quarterback position. It seems to me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the front office are in a very unique situation where they have a quarterback who's getting a little bit older. You see the productivity not where it was even a couple years ago, where they may actually want to draft that next quarterback of the future, have Baker Mayfield mentor that individual because of his veteran presence, because of what he's done in the league thus far. Being a productive quarterback, in my opinion, you can learn something if you're a rookie quarterback from Baker Mayfield. I wonder if the Bucs kind of start to go that route. They seem to be the perfect team that we are talking about on this podcast show, of teams that can actually do that and do it perhaps well. I don't know, maybe not with Todd Bowles at the helm, as you would say, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, of getting that quarterback of the future, perhaps in this upcoming draft, have Baker Mayfield mentor and mold them?
Yeah, I with knowing what they're facing, I don't think that'll happen.
Okay.
I think this is, they're all in with him, and if everything goes the way it needs to go this year, they'll extend him next year, so on and so forth. But yeah, the way the Glazers operate, I mean, they're milquetoast, man. If it ain't broke, they'll try to fix it with them. If they can keep it cheap, they're okay with it. So yeah, if he has if going into this year, just knowing what's ahead, considering, because every team, obviously you can be the Browns, but they expect success, right?
Yes.
So if their vision of success comes to fruition, then yeah, they'll be all in. The Baker will probably get a $45 million a year extension next year, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, interesting. All right, folks. Again, Evan Winter from A to Z Sports. Head on over to atozsports.com. Check out everything they've got going on over there. Fantastic content. And Evan, tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Evan_A to Z, and then obviously on atozsports.com, and then Facebook. I don't even know how you'd find me on there. So, but if you want to try to give it a search, go for it.
Sounds good, folks. We're going to take a break. When we get back, more Tampa Bay Buccaneers talk coming your way. All right, we're back with our good buddy Evan Winter from A to Z Sports. Head on over to atozsports.com. You're going to get a lot of great sports content. And as we continue to talk about this Bucs team, what we might see from them in the future, let's get into how they can possibly take things to the next level this coming season, if it is meant to be, how that could possibly happen, and really what needs to occur with current players and coaches really to make that happen. I know it's kind of a general discussion and talking point, but let's start from an offensive standpoint here, Evan. How can and should the offense perhaps elevate their game in 2026, in your opinion? And can that happen?
Yeah, it can definitely happen. And even without Mike Evans, and how it all starts, outside with everybody staying healthy. Let's just keep that out of the conversation. That's just assumed, right?
Yep.
But yeah, with the offensive line they have, still, when it's healthy and together, it's a top 5 offensive line. This will be the 3rd straight year, even though they really didn't play together a lot last year. They still got the continuity, all that in certain phases of the season, whatnot. But either way, this will be the 3rd straight year of the entire 5 going into a regular season together. So tons of continuity up front, tons of ability up front. If Graham Barton can take that step forward, come back from last year, they'll be in really good shape. And that's how it all starts with Zach Robinson's offenses. Sure, he had to kind of tailor things to Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins because of the Achilles, so on and so forth. But the reason why he was able to have as much success with Bijan Robinson, outside of Bijan being Bijan, was just because of the offensive line and that what the Falcons were able to do up front. The Bucs have that athleticism. He's going to tailor to their needs. I mean, God, man, so many people were freaking out when he was first hired. And they're like, oh my God, the pistol, it's going to be blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, dude, like he literally had to run pistol because that's what Michael Penix was most comfortable with. A guy who's played in 16 NFL games. I mean, you're not just going to throw him under center right away. I mean, and then Kirk Cousins couldn't move. So he had to go under pistol. So either way, he's going to tailor everything to everybody's strengths. And they've still got that continuity at the skill positions as well. And Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, I like Alex Anzalone a lot. I think he's going to do really well. I'm most excited over Kenneth Gainwell, though, just because, again, added that dimension as a runner, but just what he's going to be able to do in the passing game, and you're never going to know. It's not, okay, so like, for instance, let's say you have a tight end who's just really good at blocking. He's not that great at receiving. Well, if he comes out on the field and your tight end that receives is a better receiver is on the sideline, you most likely are thinking, okay, this guy's going to block, right? It's going to be a run play, or there's going to be some kind of play action, whatever it might be. So Kenneth Gainwell being out on the field doesn't take any kind of, or doesn't pigeonhole the Bucs offense by any chance. And he's explosive like Bucky. It's going to help Baker and not become Baker, the bad Baker at times. So, yes, the offense has a lot of potential to be better than it was last year, outside of just the fact that it was just a bad set of circumstances that went upon it. But it will all start with up front with offensive line. Baker's 1A. And then, honestly, it's going to be a Emeka Egbuka in the passing game. Like you said, Chris Godwin, cannot trust him. He did start kind of looking like himself towards the end of last year. Yeah. But, I'm not betting on that.
I wonder about Cade Otton, too, because I believe – didn't he sign a 3-year extension?
Yeah, 3-year, $30 million. And, and he's super underrated, man. He's not going to blow you away, but he's Mr. Reliable. And, excuse me, he's super reliable in the passing game. He's not that great of a contested catch tight end. Like, he's not going to go up and just, get hit across the middle and hold on the ball. He's made a few of those, but he's more likely to drop those than he is to catch them. And then he's excellent in the run game and the pass blocking. Go on NFLpro.com and go watch 2024 against the Lions. I think it was week 2. He had to block Aiden Hutchinson. Dude, he mauled the guy on several different occasions. Wow. So really underrated player. And he's can help that offense big time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move over to the defense in kind of the same vein here. As we mentioned earlier, there's definitely some holes for sure. So, and especially the secondary cornerback position. How can and should this defense perhaps elevate their game in 2026 to take things to the next level, if that's even possible? What are you thinking?
Yeah, this is where the conversation gets fun, man. Where to start? First, this defense is, they're going to have to do everything right. That's just how it's going to have to happen. And that just doesn't happen in the NFL. Right. I love the Ashawn Robinson signing. My goodness, go watch his introductory presser with the Bucs from last Friday. Fortunately, it was Zoom, so I actually got to ask him a couple questions. But he is just, I don't know if we can curse on here, but a bad. Hey. And the Bucs were talking about, so this is how bad it got at one point last year in the locker room. They needed a spark so bad, they brought in Jason Pierre-Paul. They tried to make it seem like they were bringing in him to actually play. And my God, when he actually did get on the field, he was awful as expected. Yeah. But that, because, he's known for his fire, and he had this huge presence, and he had this huge locker room speech at one point during their Super Bowl season, all this other stuff. But they literally brought him in to try and put a spark into the locker room to get a leader. So anyways, he brings some good ability. But they didn't land that edge rusher, like I mentioned earlier. And that's huge because this defense under Todd Bowles, for whatever reason, and they have tried. You got to give them credit. They've at least tried to a certain extent. I believe they could have gone out and traded for Max Crosby. I wrote a whole big article on why it made sense. And they didn't do it. So there's you can argue otherwise in a few areas, but either way, they just cannot generate a 4-man pass rush.
Yeah.
They just can't. And with how Bowles, where he sends his blitzers from, so on and so forth, when he does blitz and just the zone pressures, the fire zones or the sim pressures that he sends, he's got to be able to get there with 4 guys. And that's why the defense has been getting burned over the last couple of years, on top of not having a linebacker in the middle. So they don't have the guys to do that right now. They don't. It's just that simple. I like the Al-Quadin Muhammad signing. It was $6 million. Guys coming off 11 sacks last year. Sure, there's context that goes behind that. But still, great value, right? It reminds me so much of this Shaq Barrett signing from 2019. We all saw how that turned out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to have to do everything right, and they're going to have to hit on every single one of their draft picks. Those guys are going to have to come in, and they're going to have to be impact players. Deacon Morrison's hamstrings are going to have to be at least stronger than paper. I mean, and then the depth. You look at their secondary depth. It is just, with all due respect, hey, these guys are in the NFL. I'm sitting here in my basement talking. We're sitting here chatting about football. They are good players, but they're just not NFL good players.
Yeah.
And man. So everything's going to have to go perfect on defense in order for the defense to improve. Not a tall task whatsoever.
Exactly. In this day and age in the NFL, when you've got some interesting storylines in the AFC South, the NFC South, quite frankly. Look, I think at some point the Saints are going to get some sort of momentum. What that momentum looks like, who the heck knows? Carolina Panthers making the playoffs last year, winning the division, surprised everyone. 8-9. Bucks were also 8-9 last year, but at the end of the day, didn't really do much for them. I mean, I'm just wondering, even with the Falcons too, making some moves, and they seem to be a stagnant organization. But who knows if momentum at any point is on their side? I just wonder how this Bucks team can rebound from last year, remain competitive in the NFC, in the NFC South. We talked about the offensive line needing to stay healthy and needing to be that top 5 offensive line that it can be. We're just talking about the defense. Everything has to go right. Is there more of that overall picture for you, Evan, about how this team really can rebound, remain competitive in the division?
They can. They definitely can. And it all starts with the coaching staff. It has to. They have to be better. And a lot of it, credit to Bowles over the time as head coach. He's made philosophical changes every single year. He fired Byron Leftwich, a Bruce Arians disciple through and through after the first year, and went to Dave Canales, which was a completely different shift in philosophy in terms of offense. And then he went to Liam Cohen, who was, he had been OC before for the Wildcats, Kentucky, but he had never done it in the NFL, right? Yeah. So, he's done some other things. They hired an analytical guy last year to help him with game management because he knew he had to work on his game management. So he's done things every single year to kind of change it up and mix it up. I don't know what he's going to do this year. So far, he hasn't done anything. But if this coaching staff, that's how they improve. If they don't get better, I mean, the special teams last year too were aberrant. I mean, my God, they were awful. And it went from the return teams to the punter, and the kicker was the only guy that was excluded, Chase McLaughlin. He was the only, bright side. But even then, he had like a 2 or 3 week period where he struggled a little bit. So regardless, starts with the coaching staff. If they don't improve, which that's up in the air, then this team's not going to improve. It's just that plain and simple. I know there's the Jimmys and the Joes saying and all that other jazz. And they've got the guys. But this coaching staff last year was incompetent. It's that simple. You can ask anybody who watched the Bucks up close and followed them. The coaching staff was incompetent. I don't care how many good players you have. If you have a stupid coaching staff, then it's not going to work, man. And there's a reason why it's hashtag 3rd and 28. That's the saying right now in Tampa and people are getting like Mike Evans jerseys with 3rd and 28 patched on it and stuff because he screamed that after they gave that up to the Falcons and whatnot. Just, man, it's like I said, we could go 20. I would love to do it, but I know this is just not. But I would love to just sit down and talk for 20 minutes just about how we arrived at this point. It's like documentary worthy. It's just wild. It's
absolutely
wild.
Dude, I'd love to talk to you at some other point down the road. Perhaps we can get into it then. Because I love having you on, man. Folks, again, Evan Winter from A to Z Sports.com. My friend, thanks so much for taking the time. Always love talking to you. Let's talk more Bucks stuff down the road. Maybe perhaps we can get into it in more detail.
Yeah, always, man. You know I'm down.